Fortune, fame, mirror vein, gone insane, but the memory remains. Heavy rings on fingers.
Welcome back, everybody. Hour number 2 of the Pro Wrestling Experience is live right now here at ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. It's here in our live ChicagolandSportsRadio.com studios on State Street. My name is Josh Lopez. I'm at Twitter at JoshLopezCSR. I love this song. It's one of my favorite WrestleMania themes, actually. I think Sheamus could use this song as his entrance song, by the way, actually. I think it would be pretty cool for him, but here for our first guest today is a great writer out of New York City. You've seen him in his work with Vince Russo on the Relm Network, Lions, Tigers, Bears, and Dirt. He's at Twitter at JeffLane22, and he is Jeff Lane, and he's live here with yours truly, Josh Lopez, on the Pro Wrestling Experience. Jeff, what's going on, man?
What's going on, Josh? Look, before we get started, I have to tell you, I've been listening to the show today since it started, and I'm like, man, this Josh guy knows what he's talking about. He makes sense. Everything he says sounds true. And then you said something that completely killed your credibility when you said that you would have put Dan Engler as the referee in the I-Quit match to make it crazy. No, I'm kidding. Dan Engler, he's a good friend of mine. I love him to death. And I texted him actually when you said that, and I told him I was going to try to get you to explain why you thought that would be crazy.
Mm-hmm. Well, chaos always ensues when he goes on. I mean, even when he was doing matches in TNA as a referee, so at least it'll take off Mike Chioda saying, "Do you want to quit a million times?" So I appreciate the compliment, Jeff, and I appreciate the fact that you decided to take some time to come on the show today. So tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into all the Relm Network and stuff. Tell us a little bit about how you got your start in wrestling and why did you decide to start watching wrestling as a kid?
Well, I'm going to date myself here, but I grew up, when I was a kid, it was the early WrestleMania era, WrestleMania 3, 4, 5, and 6, and that's when I really got into watching wrestling. As a young child, you don't understand it. It looks real. You think it's real, and that's what drew me in, and the fact that you have these over-the-top characters, larger-than-life wrestlers, and you got people you want to root for, and you got people that you don't like. So that's what got me into it as a child. As I started to grow into my teenage years, we're getting into almost the mid-'90s with when WWF kind of got, a little lame as far as the characters. So I did get out of it for a little bit. It was like I grew up and wrestling didn't. But then, I go to college, and, one of my roommates is a giant wrestling fan, and he started telling me, you know Hulk Hogan's a bad guy? And I'm like, what? So yeah, and it was like, okay, I got to see this. So, with the rise of Nitro and the NWO, and then the explosion of the Attitude Era, and that's what really, it was Survivor Series 98, not sure, if anybody remembers that in detail, but it was the Deadly Game tournament where The Rock joined the corporation, and I was just blown away by that swerve, by the storyline, how in-depth it was, and it was that point where I decided, I want to do this. I want to make people watch something in wrestling and go, holy crap, I didn't see that coming.
What do you think? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Well, I was just going to say, after that, I got out of college. I started writing for OneWrestling.com, the old OneWrestling.com, back in the day for a couple years. And I hooked on with a pro wrestling training school in Syracuse, New York. And what they did, it was really cool and unique, where they trained these kids to wrestle, but at the same time, they ran an hour TV show weekly in Syracuse. So they were not only training them how to wrestle in the ring, they were training them how to perform on television. So I got in with them and I ended up learning a lot as far as writing wrestling television, doing some producing and things, and I ended up being the writer for the weekly TV show for a while, and that's how I got into the business.
That's cool. What do you think has been the one constant in wrestling during your entire time watching the product?
Constant as far as, what do you mean?
Well, something that remains consistent over the years. I mean, obviously wrestling changes over the years, but is there anything that remains the same since you've been watching as a kid?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to, the way that these performers are portrayed, mm-hmm. and the ones that become superstars and become mainstream, and the ones that everybody knows whether they watch wrestling or not, those people become the stars because of the way that they are portrayed, not necessarily because they're the heavyweight champion or they beat this guy or they lost to this guy or whatever, but it's the fact that you can relate to these people. They're good at getting themselves over, and just their personas and their characters, bring them to the forefront of entertainment. You take people like Shawn Michaels, Hulk Hogan, Bret Hart, you were talking about Kurt Angle earlier, Goldberg, Austin, Rock. You can go on all day. These performers, and it goes through today with, John Cena, is they become mainstream because of what they do with their character and on the microphone, not necessarily what they do inside the ring.
Speaking as for you being like a writer, and I'm kind of interested from this perspective because I want to be in the business as a broadcaster. A lot of people say they want to be in wrestling as a wrestler. That wasn't my thing. I just always gravitate towards storytelling from a fan perspective like JR did, or maybe like a Gordon Soley, if you will. But you talk about mainstream wrestling, and who you think out of anybody, it doesn't have to be from any certain company or whatever, but when you talk about today's mainstream society, who do you think could be a mainstream star?
Based on, let's see, it's hard to say. I think there's so many of them. It just all depends if they get the right creatives. Mm-hmm. You look at Kurt Angle right now. The guy's still one of the best in the business. It's just hard for him to still be a mainstream name the way he's being promoted right now. Mm-hmm. But if you want to talk about somebody, let's see, that hasn't made it yet. Let's see. I think EC3, if I had to pick anybody, has the potential to be a superstar just based on his charisma.
Absolutely. Jeff, let me ask you this before we get into the Relm Network. Did you get to catch the pay-per-view this past Sunday, Payback?
Yes, I did.
What was your thoughts on it?
I thought it was okay. I don't think it was bad by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think it was a home run as far as you're putting this on for free subscribers and you want them to drop $10 next month. Mm-hmm. I don't think it was strong enough for that. I thought the talent did the best with what they could do. I thought the Cena Rusev match was good. I thought the main event was good. The only thing why I said it was okay, because nothing really developed and nothing really happened. It just seems like they were kind of in the same place storyline-wise as they were before the show even started. So I just kind of seemed like, it was a good wrestling show. As far as story development, it just didn't do it for me.
I agree with you, and it's not anybody should make an excuse for having over-the-top home run show or even an overly bad show. I mean, you have SummerSlam all the way in August. We're still in May, so I can see where you're coming from, and I can see where maybe they're, I don't know, I don't think, it's a 50 double-edged sword with me, because I don't know if they're going through the motions or not, because the pay-per-view's all the way in August, since that's the next major pay-per-view, if you will. Maybe you throw a Money in the Bank in there, but SummerSlam is always the next big thing. So, I mean, you have the Chamber coming up, you have Money in the Bank, you got Battleground in July, so you got these 3 months. I mean, you would think they would take some time to establish a little more layers in the mid-card, some of these other stars out there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you don't need to take the belt off Rollins to make something big happen.
True.
I have absolutely no problem with him still being the champion. I think when you establish a champion for a long time, it helps make the belt more meaningful. But, there just wasn't something like anything that happened, and just for someone to say, holy crap, this is what I'm missing if I don't watch a pay-per-view. And I think they need to do something like that, especially in the free month, to make people not want to miss the next one.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, the first time they did the free month, Sting made his WWE debut, so I can see where you're coming from with that. I guess they were kind of like kind of stifled with the fact they only had like 3 weeks to build for the show, so it's going to be sometimes in these in-between months or whatever, you're just going to have a good wrestling show. But, I mean, for guys like us that watch the product all the time, we'll enjoy the matches, but from a casual viewing experience, yeah, I can see where people are not getting anything out of the pay-per-view.
Yeah, and that's the big thing, if you're trying to get new viewers, because in my opinion, the roster, they kill it every pay-per-view. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what the creative is. You're going to get a good match out of these people. Mm-hmm. So that's not anything that WWE has to worry about, the actual in-ring performances. I just think maybe a little more surprises on the creative end would help get some more casual viewers back.
We'll talk about WWE a little bit. Everybody, we're talking to Jeff Lane. He's at Twitter at JeffLane22. You can see him on the Relm Network with Vince Russo and the brand. A lot of great content on there. Jeff does the show Lion, Tigers, Bears, and Dirt. Jeff, next question here. We talk a lot about Lucha Underground in the show. What's your thoughts on Lucha Underground as a company, and who's some of your favorite stars there?
I love Lucha Underground, and it's funny because a lot of the stuff that I like in ring, they're kind of the opposite of it. When it comes to in-ring work, I'm more of an old school. I want to see a fight in the ring. I don't really want to see a lot of over-the-top moves. I want to see a fight. So Lucha doesn't do a lot of that, but it doesn't matter because I get engaged in the storyline. It matters who wins or loses in Lucha Underground. They always leave you somewhere where you want to see the next episode. I just think as far as the writing standpoint, I think it's a brilliant show. I really do. And as far as, who are some of my favorites, I think you look at people like, obviously, El Patron and Mundo, they still kill it. I'm a big fan of the women they got, Sexy Star, Evilise, Katrina, Melissa Santos. They got a great women's roster. You got young people like, now I'm drawing a blank. Who's the guy's name that jumped off The Office and did that great splash?
Oh, Angelico?
Yes, Angelico. I think he's great. Then you got guys like Son of Havoc who are entertaining. I just think it's a very well written and put together show. And if anybody hasn't seen it, I highly recommend check it out.
Is Dario Cueto the best bad guy in wrestling today?
Oh, dude, he's awesome. Did you see that 22-minute video on him just saying ladder match over and over and over again?
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know. It's a very tough question because you got to think, man, best bad guy, what are your credentials? But as far as the best written bad guy type figure, yeah, I could definitely see an argument for that. I think because he's got motivation, he's sinister, and my big thing I like with him is his unique opportunities. How he'll always give somebody a chance, but if you don't succeed, you're going to drop further than you were before you started. So I think that's a great storyline with him. I love it.
Absolutely, and I was only talking it based on a week by week basis. I mean, obviously a lot of people say that Stephanie McMahon or Paul Heyman's a great heel, but they're not always on TV every single week. And the fact with Dario Cueto, I don't even know if he does have a wrestling background or not, but the fact how he's picked up this character in this past year has been tremendous.
Yeah, and I believe that he is actually an actor. They hired an actor for the role.
Mm-hmm.
And, to me, that's a good move because if he's not going to be in the ring, get the best person you can to perform that role.
Now, here's the thing, and I was just talking about Kurt Angle in the last segment before we let you on. Is there any way that TNA can get back in the game, or is the fact that Destination America already has buyer remorse going to signal the end for TNA?
I think absolutely they can. I think moving to Wednesdays is a good move. Especially if people, it's like every night there's wrestling on. But now on Wednesdays, people are already sitting down to watch NXT, or they're already sitting down maybe to watch Lucha Underground, so it's not that far of a stretch to watch another show when you're already sitting down planning to watch wrestling. And obviously more people are in their houses on Wednesday nights than they are on Friday nights. So I think that's a good move. I think, whether Destination America is having buyer's remorse or not, I think they're going to do what it takes to try to make this successful. And that's obviously in their best interest. I just think TNA needs to find their identity, find their course, and stay it. One criticism I've had with them is you'll watch one show, and it will be, very well written as far as stories, building up for the main event, and then another week you'll watch it, and it'll just be match with no stories. And it's like you don't know what type of show you're going to get. So I think if they find their identity, they stay the course, they give it time to build, and they focus on getting people besides the hardcore wrestling fans, because they're going to watch anyway, to get more people interested by using Kurt Angle as the face of the company. I think they can pull this out.
And we got Billy Corgan now joining the creative team. I'm not going to judge off the bat because obviously I can't automatically tell if he's writing a storyline or not. So I'm going to wait out and see what happens. But I'm hoping for the best one. I love covering their show each week, and it's cool from talking to another writer from another writer. And it's like, I do my study based off like watching the shows, or maybe watching a podcast that Vince did with you, or anything on the network with the documentaries and stuff. I kind of strayed away for the past 10 years from the dirt sheets or whatever. And it's not. I understand it. Rumors and all that stuff is a forum for wrestling fans to talk about what's going on in that, but I feel like the rumors and dirt sheets is creating an environment where wrestling fans are entitled because they could see something that's a headline on a dirt sheet site, and then they could act like it's gospel.
Oh, absolutely. And just because it's one side of a story, you never get the other side, and you never get the truth. And I'm not saying that none of that stuff isn't true. Obviously, it is. But I just taking that, like you said, as gospel, it's dangerous. Especially when I just think you should make up your own mind whether you like a show, not base it on what everybody else is saying.
True. Let's get into Relm Network, and I'm kind of interested in talking about this because I said it in previous interviews and other stuff I've done in the past that Vince Russo is actually one of the main reasons why I wanted to get into wrestling. I look up to the guy a lot. I think he's misunderstood and underappreciated, to be honest with you. But tell us about the first time you got to meet Vince Russo, and how's it been getting to work with him in this past year?
Well, actually, the first time I met Vince, and he doesn't remember this, it was about 10 years ago, maybe 11 years ago. I had the opportunity to shadow him for a couple hours at a TNA show. And I got to walk around with him, watch him do pre-tapes, and, learn some things. He doesn't remember that, but that was actually the first time that I met him. But as far as now our current project, he was running, before we got involved with the Relm Network, he had a different website that he was working on and running, and they were hiring writers. And so I sent my stuff in, I sent my background in, we had a common connection, and, they liked my stuff, and they let me start writing columns for them. And eventually, it just my role increased. They liked what I was doing. I got to get in touch with Vince personally. We became, close friends and working on projects together, and that eventually led into, what my role is today on the Relm Network.
Now, Vince is obviously a very outgoing guy, and he's not afraid to let his opinions be known. I appreciate that about him, but what would be one thing that people don't know about Vince?
Yeah, he's a good person. I mean, I think a lot of what is unfortunate is if people didn't like something that he's written or something that he said about wrestling, it's okay. Not everybody has different opinions, different likes and dislikes, but it's like they want to attack him personally for it.
Yeah.
I didn't like what you did here on Nitro, so, screw you. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know, I think that's an unfortunate misconception because, when you get to know the guy, he's just like anybody else. He worked as hard as he could in the industry to put out the best product possible, and he still does that to this day.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how a creative guy can be blamed for a business move or something like that. It's kind of sad, actually.
Yeah, and I think it's just because, and this is something he's brought up before in the past, is they correlate the real Vince Russo with the Vince Russo they saw on TV and WCW.
Yeah,
what I mean? They think that's who he is, and that could be farther from the truth.
Mm-hmm. So you got Lions, Tigers, and Bears and Dirt. There's other show. You got the Swerve. I heard you guys just started redoing a Raw podcast. Tell us a little bit about what you guys are going to do with the new Raw podcast on the Relm Network.
Yeah, so actually our first review show went up yesterday. If you go to VinceRussoBrand.com, that's the site for the Relm Network, and all of our stuff is there. We have free content and we have premium content, and the Raw review show is part of our premium content now, which is $4.95 a month for 5 weekly video podcasts, with the Raw review being one of them. He has 3 shows where he gets, wrestling guests, entertainment guests, called The Swerve, Shoot the Thrill, and Vixens Who Rule, which is dedicated to women. But the Raw review is we sit down, we take a look at the show from top to bottom, and we give our honest thoughts. And, we had an interesting conversation yesterday because we had a completely opposite take on the Kevin Owens-John Cena segment.
Let's get into that really quick. Obviously, I didn't get to ask what was your thoughts on Raw. Obviously, the main thing everybody's taking away about is Kevin Owens making his Raw debut. I kind of was back and forth with some fans because I said that I don't know if it's a debut if the guy's not going to be on the roster the week after week after week after that. So I could see where people would get upset at that, but I don't know. I mean, I enjoyed the segment. Is Kevin Owens going to be the guy that's going to bring 1 million people over to the network or whatever? I don't know, but I love the guy. Kevin's one of my favorite wrestlers, but I enjoyed the segment. What was your thoughts on Raw this past Monday?
There was 2 things I really liked in particular, and that was one of them, and the other was the Lana stuff. Mm-hmm. But this is my thoughts on Kevin Owens, and if people don't agree with me, that's fine. Vince had a completely different take than I did, but when I listen to Kevin Owens cut a promo, I believe what he's saying. Mm-hmm. To me, he comes across as very believable, especially when you put him in the ring with John Cena. And he's able to go in there, and I don't, show him that he doesn't really care who he's talking to.
True.
Nobody scares him. And, I understand what people that think the other way, like Vince had issues with his look and how WWE is presenting him. And all that stuff makes sense to me. But when it comes down to it, I enjoyed the segment. And that's pretty much what it is for me. Did I enjoy watching it? And I did.
Well, I don't think that, like, Vince, I don't know, maybe it was the kind of same issue that he had with the Sami Zayn appearance a couple weeks ago, where it's non-advertised, you don't do any vignettes or anything about the guy coming on the show. Maybe Vince is not looking at the bigger picture ever with it being promotion for NXT, but like my only issue was that everybody's like, oh my god, Kevin Owens is going to be on Raw every week now. That's not the case, but I agree with what you said, Jeff. I love the guy. I think he's a great performer. He's great on the mic, obviously, but I think he does put away some stereotypes that be attached to him, especially for the way he performs for a guy his size.
Yeah, and I wrote something a few weeks back. 5 acts that I think should be on Raw from NXT, and he was one of the people I covered, and it was specifically because of his believability. I agree with everything Vince said about his look, how he presented, and things of that nature. All that makes absolute sense. But I see something in this guy, and I see potential there. And you got to give all the credit in the world to John Cena for that.
Yep. Because
without Cena there, it wouldn't have been as good, in my opinion.
A couple more things before we let you go. Let's talk a little bit about some sports, actually. So I know you're a Yankees fan. I see the cap every week on the show. So how's the Yankees going? And are you a Knicks fan or not?
Yes, I am. Not happy with the lottery results, but that's all right. But the Yankees, man, they're surprising me this year. I didn't think, up to this point we'd be competing. I just didn't think the bats would be there. I had faith in the pitching. But they're putting together wins. They had a little bumble here this past week in Tampa, and in a couple they lost to Washington last night. But overall, I'm pleased with what they're doing, and I just hope they can keep it going the entire season and try to make a run into the playoffs.
It's going to be an interesting story if the Yankees do make the playoffs. I know a lot of people still hate Alex Rodriguez. I was kind of bummed out with the whole PED stuff. Alex was one of my favorite players, actually, growing up as a kid. I'm a White Sox fan. They're getting things back together. They're just on a big winning streak, actually. But we'll see what happens with them. The Blackhawks are on a roll. I don't know. Maybe the Hawks could play the Rangers in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Dude, I'll go for that because the Rangers are my team. So,
nice.
Yeah, I'm always my teams are always in New York. Always have been. Like, I'm a big Buffalo Bills fan. I had season tickets for years to see them. So I pretty much support most of the New York teams. Not a big Mets fan or the Nets, but
that's cool.
And those New Jersey football teams, could care less about them. But
one more thing, and tonight we got NXT Takeover on the network. I'm going to be busy tonight, man. I got to cover that show, then Lucha after that. But what's your thoughts on NXT Takeover tonight? Who do you think wins between Owens and Zayn?
That's interesting. I'm looking forward to the show, and I think who wins all comes down to if Owens is staying or if they're going to bring Owens up after the Elimination Chamber match. I think if they like what they saw and they're going to bring him up to the main roster, I think he drops the belt tonight. Otherwise, I think he keeps it. But I'm really looking forward to the women's match. I love the women in NXT. I think they're all phenomenal, especially Sasha and Becky Lynch. So I'm really looking forward to that one.
Jeff, I appreciate you coming on the show again. It was an honor getting to talk to you, and I'm a big fan of Vince. Obviously, I would be honored to have him on the show one day. I'd love to do this again. Follow Jeff at Twitter at JeffLane22. Vince Russo brand, that's where you get all the content on the Relm Network. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on the show, and I'd love to do this again.
Oh, I appreciate the invite, Josh. Anytime, man.